Hi guys, happy Saturday. You're here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and today I worked a double shift. I actually worked so much this week, I've not put out many videos, but this upcoming week I have less work, so more videos, and the next 2 days I have off. If you're used to my channel, welcome, and if you've not been introduced to my Saturday program that I do, Saturday Night Lore, it's not pretty, okay? It's a horror program, and I read from a book of lore, this one, and we read pretty gruesome stories, okay? So, what I'm trying to say by this is let you know, as a trigger, that this story is about murder, and it actually was high, and so if you're not into that, just watch all my other content besides Saturday Night Lore. I really don't talk about this kind of stuff and anything else. So, and I would always give you some kind of warning, okay? But this story that we're reading today is called The Axman Jazz. And I bet you guys are excited because if you watch American Horror Story, you will know that this story came toward the end of, I believe it was season 3, but it's called Coven, and it's the one that's all about witches and witchcraft, right? So this story is directly related to witchcraft, which is awesome. I can't say that about all of the stories in these books because they're just lore in general. Okay, so let's get on with the reading. The ruskin' and the reading. Okay, that Axman Jazz. Between May of 1918 and October of 1919, there was a jazz fan on the loose in New Orleans. Wait, that's not right. Let me try that again. Between May of 1918 and October of 1919, there was a killer on the loose in New Orleans. On May 22nd, 1918, while Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine were asleep in bed, someone broke into their home and killed them. They lived above their retail space where they sold groceries and ran a bar, but the killer didn't seem to be interested in the valuable food and alcohol in the shop below. He came, it seems, for them. He cut their throats with a razor blade, most likely because it was quiet, but after he was done, the killer took his axe and proceeded to bash the heads of both victims to an indefinable mess. Maybe it was to hide the killing wound. Maybe it was to let out some sort of personal rage he felt toward them. No one knows. History just remembers the crime scene. Catherine died instantly, but Joseph actually managed to survive through the night until his brothers Jake and Andrew discovered him. But he only held on for a while, dying just moments after they arrived, and so the police were brought in. The authorities found the razor and traced it back to Joseph's brother Andrew, who was quickly arrested. But the facts didn't line up. There were, however, multiple reports of an unknown man lurking near the Maggio home prior to the murders, and so the police released Andrew and went looking for the real killer. Unfortunately, the killer was already on the move. Are you guys knowing what story this is yet? Das Axman. 1 month later, on June 27th, Louis Bessumer and Harriet Lowe were asleep in the apartment behind Bessumer's grocery store when a man quietly walked into the room. The stranger then struck both of the sleeping victims on the head with the axe he had found somewhere in the apartment. Both suffered fractured skulls and were taken to the hospital. Bessumer survived and Harriet Lowe died a little over a month later on August 5th. The same day, one Miss Schneider, 28 years old and 8 months pregnant, was taken a late afternoon nap. She woke to find a dark figure of a man standing over her. The man proceeded to beat her head and face. So fucked up, you guys. Can't even say how fucked up that is. She too survived, and weeks later she gave birth to a healthy baby girl. On August 10th, Joseph Romano, an elderly man who lived with his 2 nieces, was attacked by a man with an axe. The 2 women saw the attacker and described him as a dark-skinned and heavy-set. But that didn't explain how he entered the house, as the only point of entry was a single missing panel that had been chiseled out of the home's door. Charles Cordamilinga, his wife, Rosie, and their infant daughter Mary were all attacked on March 10th, 1919. So messed up. While they slept, a bloody axe was found on the porch near the door, mind you, that had a missing panel. 3 days later, on March 13th, the New Orleans Times, Picayune, received a letter from someone claiming to be the killer. Here's a sample of what it said. They have never caught me and they never will. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 next Tuesday night, I'm going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I'm going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared whose home has a jazz band in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has jazz band going, well then, so much better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of you people who do not jazz it on Tuesday night will not get the axe. Or that do not jazz it on Tuesday night will get the axe. The city complied, and jazz was played across the town that night in homes and social clubs. True to his word, the killer spared the people of New Orleans, but just for the night. More attacks followed. Steve Baca, another grocer, oddly enough, was attacked on August 10th. Sarah Lawman was the next victim on September 3rd. But it was the final attack on October 27th that left the darkest stain on the city's memory. That night, Mike Pepitone's wife was pulled from sleep to the sound of her husband screaming. She ran into his bedroom and found him covered with blood that flowed from a massive head wound, but she also saw the killer. And then it was over. The killer disappeared. No one went to trial. No one was held accountable for the murders that plagued the city for nearly 2 years. It all just came to an end, like silence after the final notes of a jazz tune. And that was the end. Or maybe not. You see, on December 2nd, 1920, a man was walking through the dark streets of Los Angeles, 2,000 miles from New Orleans, when a figure stepped out of the shadows. The figure held no axe, though. This time it was a gun, and a moment later, Joseph Mumphrey lay dead on the street. Mumphrey, you see, was originally from New Orleans. He was an ex-con who had been released from prison just before the axe murder had begun in 1918. He moved to L.A. just a week after the murder of Mike Pepitone. The killer stood over Mumphrey's body, gun in hand, while sirens drew closer and closer. There was no panic or flight from the scene of the crime. So when the LA police arrived minutes later, it was a simple matter to take the killer into custody. Her name was Esther Albano, but we know her by another name, Miss Mike Pepitone. Trippy, you guys. Trippy. Good stuff. I really like that one, and I was halfway through reading it before I realized that I know this story. You know, when the killer says, play jazz and you will be spared, and I'm like, where do I know that from? Coven! American Horror Story. So good. I fucking love that Coven series. And I gotta be honest, that was like, I watched that and then within the next year got heavily into witchcraft and started calling myself a witch. I really like the scenes on clairvoyance in that, when she's blind, and then in the end, when, you know, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, fast forward, but in the end when she blinds herself so she can have clairvoyance again. Awesome. Oh, there's a tiny little story in here, you guys. I think I'll read it over, see if it's good enough, and then maybe do another video on lore. Thank you for joining me back, Jen, the Taxidermy Witch, with another episode of Saturday Night Lore. If you like my content, subscribe and like. But remember, I only do this sort of stuff on Saturday as of right now. I might start doing it more, but my content is mostly on herbalism, witchcraft, and really gentle, light things in the craft. So, have a beautiful evening, and come back for more Saturday Night Lore with the Taxidermy Witch.